Here we go.
So Coach Red Pill put out a video with the unfortunate title you saw in the intro. He's a bit long-winded, so I apologize in advance for any lengthy clips, but I wanted to keep the context intact before replying. Let's get into the video.
Christmas is fast approaching, and I had a little incident a couple of days ago that was, well, quite frankly, it sort of rattled me. You see, my daughter is 4 years old, and I noticed that she was looking despondent. I mean, it frightened me. You know, when a 4-year-old child looks despondent, you sit up and take notice, right? So I went up to her and I asked her, you know, what's wrong? What's the matter? You know, and she looked at me with these big, beautiful eyes of hers. And she said that she had been over playing at her little friend's house, and the little friend's older brother, a 10-year-old boy, had intimated that Santa Claus didn't exist.
I guess that's unfortunate, depending on how you view it. Some parents would be upset, while others might decide this is an opportunity to build trust between the child and his or her parent. Now, I don't want to tell Coach Red Pill or any other parent how to raise their child. Basically, CRP is faced with a choice, whether to tell his child the truth that Santa isn't real, or tell his child that yes, Santa is real, so he can preserve those years of believing for both himself and his child. Let's see what he chooses to do.
I mean, oh boy, right? My daughter, you know, understood the notion of Santa Claus when she was about a little under 3 years of age. And last year, she was all looking forward to Santa Claus. And she was very worried last year of being on Santa's nice list, not the naughty list, right? And so she would always do things to be on the nice list. And she'd ask us, you know, I'm doing this, so I'm going to be on the nice list, right? Santa Claus was a big deal to her, right? And here was this 10-year-old little punk telling her that Santa Claus didn't exist. And she was looking at me for answers.
Uh-huh, and you told her what?
Right? So I knelt down to be at eye level with her, and I leaned forward and looked her in the eye with a furrowed brow. And I held her gaze, and I said to her, "Of course he exists. I talk to him all the time. Yeah, I do. I talked to him a couple of days ago. I have his number on speed dial." Wait, let's see if... Oh, wait. It's kind of late in the North Pole. You know, Santa is probably sleeping. Santa and Mrs. Claus and the little elves. They're all probably sleeping right now, so I'm not going to call him now. But, you know, I'll call him tomorrow, and if I don't catch him, look, Christmas Eve, when Santa comes over, we'll stay up and we'll talk to him, right? Yeah, of course he exists. Santa Claus. Yes, of course, dear, he exists. Absolutely. I'm telling you that he exists. Okay?
Okay, so you went with telling your daughter that the boy was wrong and that Santa does indeed exist. Lots of parents would have gone that route, and that's your choice as a parent. However, I'm not sure what any of this has to do with atheists.
Weight. I could see the weight coming off her shoulders, you know? And from that despondent look, this big, bright sunrise of a smile burst out, and she ran off to play, and that was that. Emergency solved. Some of you, I'm sure, are saying, well, you should have told her the truth, you know, that Santa Claus doesn't exist. And to you, I answer, you know, what kind of a complete asshole would I be to strip away the illusions of a 4-year-old girl?
A truthful one? And who exactly gave her those illusions? Did she come up with them on her own, or were they given to her by you? By stripping away those illusions, you'd be stripping away the lies you set there in the first place. You might see them as white lies or even fun, beneficial lies, but they're still lies that you told her. I mean, I think it's fair game to point this out, since you just insinuated that parents who would choose differently in those circumstances, so the parents who would answer honestly, are the assholes. There's also some evidence pointing towards belief in Santa being potentially harmful to a child's development. For example, from The Guardian, Parents, though, are being urged to reconsider the ethics of the Great Santa Claus Lie. In an article published in the journal Lancet Psychiatry, 2 psychologists have raised the specter of children's moral compass being thrown off kilter by what is normally considered a magical part of the Christmas tradition. The darker reality, the authors suggest, is that lying to children, even about something fun and frivolous, could undermine their trust in their parents and leave them open to abject disappointment when they eventually discover that magic is not real. Kathy McKay, a clinical psychologist at the University of New England, Australia, and co-author said, "The Santa myth is such an involved lie, such a long-lasting one, between parents and children, that if a relationship is vulnerable, this may be the final straw. If parents can lie so convincingly and over such a long time, what else can they lie about? Leveling with your children so close to the big event may put a bit of a dampener on festivities, but parents must sometimes take the long view, according to McKay. There is potential for children to be harmed in these lies," she said. McKay's moral stance on Santa may collide with real life in the near future if her 3-year-old goddaughter make inquiries on the subject. She believes in Santa at the moment, and it's not my role to go against her parents' wishes, she said. She's never asked me about Santa. When she does, I'll tell her because I want my goddaughter to grow up knowing that there will always be safety and honesty with us. End quote. Now, you can also argue that belief in Santa could have some potentially beneficial effects as well, such as teaching children how to reason through why they believe something, but regardless, I don't think that parents who might choose to tell their children the truth about Santa are assholes either.
Her belief in Santa Claus, on the one hand, is perfectly harmless. And, she's not doing anything because of her belief in Santa Claus.
Wait a second. Just a minute ago, you said it did affect her behavior. Here's a reminder.
And so she would always do things to be on the nice list. And she'd ask us, I'm doing this, so I'm going to be on the nice list, right?
Oh, so she is doing something because of her belief in Santa Claus. But because you think it's beneficial, it's okay.
And on the other hand, it actually does some good. Because every year she looks forward to Christmas. Every year she's conscientious of staying on Santa's, nice list and not on the naughty list, right? It does a lot of good.
Alright, so let's unpack these good things. Are you saying that your daughter wouldn't look forward to Christmas if she didn't believe in Santa? Let's hypothetically say that you raised your daughter by telling her that Santa didn't exist, but that other kids thought he did. You then use the Santa image like we would most other types of holiday symbols, like, say, reindeers, snowmen, Jack Frost, and so forth. However, you still gave presents. Perhaps you even gave presents from, wink wink, Santa. And you continued to do all the other activities commonly associated with Christmas, like decorating a tree, having a family meal, etc. Do you think she wouldn't look forward to Christmas? Maybe you think she'd look forward to it a little less? Personally, I can't see why she'd look forward to it less. She's still getting presents, she'd still be filled with anticipation, and all of the holiday traditions would remain intact. Your other example about staying on the nice list couldn't be achieved without Santa? I think it could. I remember being a child and the nice list didn't stay in my head long after Christmas. Sure, I'd think about it maybe a month or two in advance of Christmas, but after Christmas I didn't give it a second thought.
And it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't have any really negative effect. When she was little, when she was 2.5, 3, and she had the concept of Santa Claus, and she became very self-conscious about staying on the nice list, she would do all kinds of things to be on the nice list, and thinking to herself and saying that she wanted to be on the nice list, right? But those attitudes and actions and behaviors became just a natural part of who she is. And you could say that, this is a mind control or some crap like that, that with the illusion of Santa Claus, we made her behave like a good little girl, but so what?
I don't think it's mind control, but I do think that if that's the only reason why she would behave ethically, then she's missing out on the real-world ethical grounding most parents impart to their children. Things like considering other people's feelings, the consequences of her actions, and so on. Those are the real reasons why she might want to do good and/or consider her actions. In other words, you can, and most parents do, instill those same actions and behaviors through the use of reason and empathy. No magic man required.
Okay, at the end of the day, all that matters is, she's helping around the house and she doesn't beat up her annoying little brother. Okay, that's the important thing, right? Right.
Right? Wrong.
Wrong. The important thing in the long run is that she understands why she's behaving that way. For example, why shouldn't she beat up her brother? Could beating him up have long-term consequences for both her and him? Can she empathize with her brother and realize that she wouldn't like someone to beat her up, so maybe not beating up her brother is a good idea? These are the concepts most parents generally try to instill in their offspring. It's why parents often ask their children why their bad behavior isn't considered acceptable.
Now, Santa Claus and God, I mean, they're two big white guys with big white beards. Up in the sky, both of them. I mean, they're practically twins. What kind of an asshole would you have to be to strip away somebody's belief in God? Especially, if they're not that sophisticated, not so intelligent as you, perhaps.
I'm sure some religious people think that God is a white man with a flowing beard in the sky, but I really doubt it would be the majority of religious people. I also don't think intelligence necessarily has anything to do with believing or not believing. I don't think my IQ shot up a few points the moment I realized that I didn't believe in God. It sounds suspiciously like you're making the argument that if someone is less intelligent than we are, we should just lie to their face and let them believe what they choose, even when those beliefs might adversely affect our lives in different ways. And how exactly do atheists strip away belief? I'm a vocal atheist, but I'm also not passing out flyers or yelling at people in the street. I don't stand outside of churches and mock people going inside. I just speak my mind on the internet, and people can choose to ignore it or watch it. In real life, I don't bring up religion unless I'm asked a question directly and drawn into a conversation. I hardly think of that as being an asshole about it. When did it become an asshole thing to speak the truth as you see it?
You see, I myself am an atheist, right? I don't believe in God. I recognize that as a human being, my understanding of the universe is quite limited. But I do not believe that there is some large white man with a white beard up in the sky controlling everything. I don't know what created the universe, and I believe, quite frankly, that my limited human intelligence and the limited human capabilities of my species will never come to any definitive answer as to how the universe was created. That's one of those mysteries, and c'est la vie. But I don't believe in God, and yet I would never strip that belief away from anybody, even if my religious upbringing had been damaging to me.
We might never know how the universe began. That much is true. I think this is one of the things I find most fascinating about religion. The fact that even when someone doesn't believe in God or the religions that belief spawns, so many people still treat religion like some sort of sacred subject that we just can't talk about honestly. Instead, we have to shield grown freaking adults from talking about the truth. I can't think of any other topic where we act this way. Do conservatives worry about stripping away the beliefs of Democrats and vice versa? Do we worry about talking honestly about conspiracy theories? I just don't understand why we should think any differently about religion. Religions make some very serious truth claims, not least of which is how we should act, how the universe came to be, and what our place should be within it. Yet we can't even honestly examine those claims because we might hurt another adult's widow feelings. It's so weak and pathetic. I mean, look, in this very video, you're arguing that we should treat adults like you treat your 4-year-old daughter. How condescending is that? If I were religious, this video would piss me off.
But you see, I would never strip away that comfort from somebody else. I've met a lot of people who are religious, some of them deeply religious. And their religion and their belief in God gives them a sense of purpose, especially if perhaps their lives are not as happy as they wish they had been, especially if perhaps their life is filled with defeat and setbacks. What good would it be for me to strip away their belief? What kind of an asshole would I be?
The infantilization of grown adults implicit in his arguments makes me sick to my stomach. I don't want to be an asshole, so I'm not going to speak the truth. You're too stupid to handle the truth. Your life is too pathetic to come to grips with the truth. It's such a disgusting argument that appeals to emotion. He's not making a reasoned argument at all, but instead asking you to treat grown adults like you might a small child because feels.
How lacking in compassion would I be to go up to somebody who is a believer and rub their nose in their ignorance and say, look how stupid you are. What a moron, what an idiot you are to believe in God, in this big white guy up in the sky. How stupid of you. What kind of an asshole would I be if I acted that way?
A huge asshole, but that's not what the vast majority of atheists are doing. I'm an anti-theist and I don't tell religious people they're stupid for believing in their God. I honestly don't think they are stupid. I think they're mistaken. I think they're wrong, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. They certainly don't have a hard time telling me I'm wrong. Does that make them an asshole? Of course not. They believe they're right, and I respect them for voicing their views. I wouldn't dream of telling them to not hurt my feelings by silencing themselves. My life isn't perfect, but that's not a good reason for me to ignore reality or to tell other people that they're assholes if they voice what they sincerely believe to be true. What a weak argument this is. It's preposterously condescending to both believers and non-believers.
And to what purpose? What would be the point of me acting this way towards somebody who holds a belief that is, for the most part, at least Christians and Jews, harmless? The belief in God, it doesn't harm anybody, and it gives a little bit of comfort to people whose lives are not so fortunate as my own.
Harmless? It's not harmless at all. Do you live under a rock? Do you not read newspapers? Faith healing, corruption of education, children being instilled with a fear of eternal torture, stem cell research worldwide being held up because of pressures from religious institutions, the constant fighting over holy sites and cities, burning of witches in some countries even today, the demonization of birth control that has led to the spread of preventable diseases, the idea that teaching abstinence is the best policy instead of teaching common sense birth control methods, government policies that are influenced by religious thought, the persecution of gay people because of religious teachings. I mean, the list is endless. Whether you believe in God or not, there's no denying that religion has a very big impact on the world around us. Even religious communities recognize the harm that other religious communities might cause.
I've never understood atheists who go around belittling people who believe in God. I've never understood atheists because so many of the problems of their lives could be solved by religion, by going to church. I mean, I know so many atheists, young men who are self-consciously atheist, right? And they're very lonely. And they live alone, and they have no friends, and they are online all the time because that's the only social release that they can find.
Oh my. How absurd. Newsflash, there are plenty of religious people who also fit that bill. It's not all that shocking that there are people who might be socially awkward or introverted. Wow. Just wow.
If they went to church, well, they'd meet very nice people, church-going folk. And, you know, in church mixers, they'd meet some nice girl. Maybe not a supermodel and maybe not very sophisticated, but a decent person. A person who'd have her priorities on straight, who'd be thinking of having a family and having children and building a loving and comforting and cozy home. And what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
And you can't find those things outside of church? What a bad argument this is. A, church is boring, especially if you don't believe what everyone is selling. B, you can find people with those same family values without going to church. C, there are many, many ways that you can get together in groups, such as community centers, volunteering, concerts, sports events, schools, secular dances, clubs, etc. You're an atheist. You must realize this. You'd think you'd understand that what you're selling here is absolute nonsense.
Because I certainly don't believe in Santa Claus, but when I'm talking to my daughter, I most certainly believe. Okay?
No. No, you do not. You don't believe in Santa when you're talking to your daughter. Wait. What's happening? I'm losing reception.
So I wanted to talk briefly about this video Coach Red Pill made about atheists and atheism. Very clickbaity title, considering that Coach Red Pill is an atheist himself.
You see, I myself am an atheist, right? I don't believe in God. I recognize that as a human being, my understanding of the universe is quite limited, but I do not believe that there is some large white man with a white beard up in the sky controlling everything.
And don't you fret, because I will be sure to bring that up again. So in the video, he starts out with this analogy. The analogy is his daughter believes in Santa Claus. It gives her hope and happiness, and it has no ill effects, really. But there's people at her school trying to convince her otherwise. They're trying to convince her of the obvious truth that Santa Claus is not real. He tries to use this example to paint an analogy. Well, if you try to take God or religion away from someone, that's like trying to take Santa Claus away from a little girl. And how much of an asshole would that make you? The problem is, straight out the gate, this analogy falls on its face. Because, and I'm sure Coach Red Pill would agree to this, there comes an age when you have to tell your kids that Santa Claus isn't real. There comes an age when it's time to stop feeding them delusions. You may even feel a tinge of regret for introducing that idea to them at such an impressionable age. Because as the years go on, the investment in a falsehood is only going to grow. This analogy also doesn't work considering that belief in Santa Claus is mostly harmless. It's not true, but it's far from the most pressing issue in society. Coach Red Pill tries to make the case that the Jewish and Christian faiths are harmless. This is obviously not true, and in fact their history speaks for itself, I believe. My biggest problem with his video is he actually doesn't have an argument. The argument is nothing more than a whiny, emotional beg to the audience. So if you're an atheist and you care about the world around you, you want to make a difference, you know what? That makes you an asshole. Like, how even dare you consider that? Why would you take away someone's beliefs? Let's take a moment to explain the obvious. I'm an atheist. That means that I don't believe God is real. That means I don't belong to any organized religion. And try to stick with me here. I don't want an organization that is built around something that is untrue to have such strong influence in my civilization. That is the farthest thing from what I want. Coach Red Pill's video, for me, reiterates that the other side actually doesn't have an argument at all. People who are active atheists online or anti-theists, we have for years been raising points against various religions in the world and their effects in society and on their believers. We bring concrete examples of links between faith and action and behavior. What does the other side have to say? Well, they have fedora memes, or it's Coach Red Pill calling you an asshole, which coming from him means absolutely nothing to me because he's an asshole. And I think that's something he would admit to. The hypocrisy of the presenter does not help his case at all. Coach Red Pill goes after people's beliefs all the time. Beliefs that give people comfort and identity. Those are okay to attack. These ones are arbitrarily off limits, though. And you're an asshole if you even consider deconstructing them, or suggesting that society would be better off without them. This should bother you. It should bother you that there are people out there who are attempting to shut you down with smears and name-calling rather than debate or argumentation. But that's all they have. That is their only tactic left because they don't have an argument. The argument is stop being an asshole. And this debate has expanded so exponentially. Now that it's reached the Red Pill community, I'm actually really disappointed. For these people who keep it real, and they're willing to tell you the uncomfortable truth about the world. But then a rising star within that movement says, oh, no. Let people just live in delusional fairy tales. That's fine. He knows full well that religion isn't true. And then he very condescendingly patronizes to religious people. He treats them like children who believe in Santa Claus and can't handle the grim truth of the world. And I'm the asshole? I at the very least think that people deserve to know the truth about the world they live in. How's that for a red pill?